Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of mistakes, feeling like you'd never be able to forgive yourself? Miguel felt the same way. The pain of the past consumed him, and the shame prevented him from moving forward. But what he didn't know is that, to find true freedom, he would need to look within himself. In this video, we'll show you how, even in the hardest moments, we can transform pain into strength. If you've ever felt lost, know that the solution isn't in what you do, but in what you learn to be. It's time to start over. Join us and discover how forgiveness, self-awareness, and the courage to change can transform your life, just as it transformed Miguel's. Now, let's dive into this emotional story, but before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because the next videos will have even more touching stories for you. Miguel was a simple man, but with a big heart. He worked from sunup to sundown, his life dedicated to building buildings. He spent entire days at construction sites, raising walls brick by brick, carrying the weight of the heavy work that always seemed never-ending. At the end of each day, as he left the job site, his body was exhausted, his back ached, and his head felt heavy like a massive stone. The only thing he wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and rest. But before that, he had to catch the crowded train back to his neighborhood. Every day, he took the same train at the same time, like a ritual that was part of his life. Exhaustion took over him, and many times he would fall asleep, sitting there with his gaze lost through the window, unaware of the train's movement. But on that particular day, something changed. Miguel was so tired that he didn't notice when the train made a slight stop, signaling that it was approaching his station. The sound of the doors opening and the movement of people getting up to get off startled him awake. He was about to miss his stop, and panic flooded him. He stood up quickly, trying to make sense of where he was, and then he heard a soft, sweet, and welcoming voice. "Hey, sir, your stop is next." Miguel looked toward the voice, confused and a bit disoriented, and saw a young woman smiling at him. Her smile was so genuine that it immediately made Miguel feel a bit more at ease. The young woman, with bright eyes and a kind expression, said calmly, "You always take this train, don't you? I see you almost every day. You always seem so tired. I think this is your stop." Miguel was surprised, but at the same time, he felt a warmth in his chest. "She noticed me," he thought, almost in disbelief. He smiled shyly and thanked her. As he got off the train, he couldn't stop thinking about it. The exhaustion felt lighter now, and for a moment, he even felt a little more alive, as if something special was about to happen in his life. And indeed, something was about to change. The next day, when he boarded the train again, the young woman was there. She was sitting with her eyes fixed on a book, but soon looked up at him and smiled again. Miguel smiled back, and that's how a friendship began. They started talking casually, exchanging a few words about the day and their work. Over the days, the conversations grew longer. Her name was Amanda. She was a cheerful young woman with a sweet look and a spirit so light it seemed to brighten the atmosphere around her. She talked about her life, her studies, and soon Miguel realized that, in addition to being a good listener, she had something very special, something Miguel had never encountered before. A way of seeing life with more lightness, as if the world was full of possibilities. She spoke of dreams, of good things that could happen, and of how important it was to believe in the simple moments of life. Miguel, who had never really cared about such things, began to open up more, to talk more about his life, about the dreams he had abandoned over the years. He felt good around Amanda, as if her presence made him see the world in a different way. And so it was, on a regular day, that a moment of departure at the station transformed Miguel's life. Something that seemed like just a friendship, a conversation between two people who met by chance, began to grow. Miguel felt that this young woman was, in some way, showing him a new path, something beyond hard work and daily struggles. Their friendship would soon turn into something more, a love that would come unexpectedly, but with the intensity of something Miguel never imagined feeling. Miguel didn't know what the future held for him, but when he looked at Amanda, he had a comforting feeling that, finally, something good was happening. Their friendship grew, and with each passing day, her smile became more necessary in his life, like a light that somehow guided him through the tough times. Is this story getting emotional? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Hang tight. The story continues. Miguel and Amanda's friendship blossomed quickly, and he felt he was becoming a different person by her side. With every conversation, Miguel discovered new perspectives, ways of seeing life he never could have imagined before. Amanda made him laugh, even on the toughest days, and she always had comforting words, something that seemed to come from the depth of her heart. However, something began to change. Miguel realized that his feelings for Amanda were deepening. He didn't know how to explain it, but she was constantly in his thoughts, and he caught himself smiling alone when remembering an inside joke she had told or a small gesture she had made. He was falling in love, and it was something he couldn't control. But something was preventing Miguel from revealing his feelings. There was something about Amanda that he still couldn't fully understand. One day, while they were on the train heading home, Amanda seemed more pensive than usual. She wasn't smiling as she always did, and Miguel, who was used to her contagious energy, noticed that something was wrong. After some time in silence, Miguel couldn't hold back any longer. He turned to Amanda, looking concerned, and asked, "Are you okay, Amanda? You seem different today." Amanda hesitated for a moment, staring out the window as if weighing her words. Then she sighed deeply and almost in a whisper responded, I don't know how to tell you this, Miguel. I don't want you to look at me differently, but I have something in my life that I'm trying to hide. Something that has been weighing on me a lot, and I don't want it to affect our friendship." Miguel, who was completely surprised by Amanda's change in behavior, was stunned. He had never seen her so vulnerable, so distant. From that moment on, he knew there was something much bigger happening than he had imagined. He looked at her kindly and, without hesitation, said, "It doesn't matter what it is, Amanda. You can tell me. I'm here to listen." Her eyes a little misty, and finally began to speak. "I have a disease, Miguel, and it's not something easy to deal with. Sometimes I feel like my life is falling apart in pieces, and I don't know how much longer I have." Miguel felt a tightness in his chest. He never imagined something so devastating could be happening to Amanda, that young woman full of life who always seemed to light up the room. She explained that she was facing a serious illness, something that wasn't visible to others, but was slowly consuming her inside. She had kept it silent for so long because she feared it would change how people saw her, especially Miguel, who had become so important in her life. Miguel was in shock. He felt a mixture of emotions, sadness, concern, and at the same time, an overwhelming desire to protect her, to make her feel supported. He didn't know what to say, but the only thought that passed through his mind was, "I won't let you go through this alone." In a calm voice, he replied, "You're not alone, Amanda. I can't imagine what you're going through, but you can count on me. I'll be here for you, every step of the way. We'll get through this together, one way or another." Those words marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. For Amanda, hearing those words from Miguel was a relief. She had feared that her illness would push people away, especially Miguel, but he was there, more present than ever. She knew he wasn't just saying words to comfort her, he truly meant everything he said. Over time, Amanda began to trust Miguel more, sharing with him the details of her battle against the illness. She had good days and bad days, but when weak or discouraged, Miguel was there to remind her of the strength she still carried within herself. They grew closer than ever, and their friendship transformed into an unbreakable bond. Miguel also felt stronger with her presence. Amanda's illness didn't define her, and he refused to let her see herself through that lens alone. He admired her courage, her ability to smile even on the darkest days. To Miguel, Amanda was not a victim of her illness. She was an incredible woman, with an inner strength that inspired him to be a better person, kinder and more attentive. Time passed, and the weeks turned into months. Miguel and Amanda had grown closer than ever. Every day, Miguel was by Amanda's side with tireless dedication. He knew that what she was facing wasn't easy, but he was there, unwavering, as her support. Each of Amanda's smiles reflected the strength she was finding amidst her silent battle, and every time she talked about what she was feeling, Miguel listened with an open heart, without haste, without judgment. They had become accomplices in a difficult journey that, at the same time, was filled with depth. However, as time went by, Miguel began to notice something he could no longer ignore. His feelings for Amanda were becoming more intense each day. It was as if with every moment they spent together, he got closer to something he didn't know how to handle: love. He didn't exactly know when it had started, but now it was impossible to ignore. Their friendship, so strong and essential, had transformed into something bigger, something that stirred his heart in a way he couldn't explain. It was a strange feeling, as if he were walking a tightrope between the desire to protect Amanda and the need to be more for her. But at the same time, he feared what this could mean for their friendship. And, in a way, this paralyzed him. The fear of the unknown held him back, and he didn't know how to move forward. He wanted to tell her how he felt, but feared it would push her away. He knew Amanda was already dealing with so much, and the last thing he wanted was to complicate her life with feelings that could be an additional burden. One night, while they were sitting on the balcony of a cafe, looking at the full moon reflecting over the calmness of the city, Miguel realized this would be the moment he could no longer delay the decision. Something inside him was pushing him to be honest with Amanda, to share what he felt, to break the silence that had formed in his chest. But even then, fear consumed him. Amanda, as always, seemed calm. She appeared fine, but Miguel knew that it was just a facade. She was so used to hiding her feelings, her struggles, so as not to burden others, especially him. She never wanted to show how heavy the burden of her illness weighed on her heart. Miguel knew her well enough to realize that, no matter how strong she was, Amanda also had her moments of vulnerability. It was during those times that he felt he needed to protect her more than ever. It was when he looked at her, his gaze fixed, almost breathless, that he felt the moment had arrived. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. The words that had been in his heart needed to be said. Miguel swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and looked directly at Amanda. The city around them seemed to disappear, and all that was left was the silence between them. "Amanda," he started, his voice a little shaky, "there's something I need to tell you, something that I don't know how to put into words, but I need to be honest with you." She looked at him with a curious expression, her eyes soft but alert. She knew he was about to say something important, but had no idea what was going on in his mind. Miguel hesitated for a moment. The words felt too heavy, as if the air around them had become denser. "I am falling in love with you, Amanda," he finally said, his voice quieter but clear. "I can't ignore what I feel anymore. I love you, and I can't keep this inside." Amanda fell silent for a moment that seemed eternal, her gaze fixed on Miguel as if she was trying to understand what he had just said. She knew he was important to her, but hearing those words, so sincere, so direct, made her feel something she couldn't ignore. It was as if, suddenly, everything she had kept inside, all the fear, insecurity, and pain, surfaced. The tension in the air between them was palpable. Amanda took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. She looked down, then back up at Miguel, and with a soft but sad smile, she spoke. "Miguel, I love you too. I always knew, but I was so afraid. Afraid that this would drive us apart. Afraid I wouldn't be good enough. Afraid that you would look at me differently when you knew everything I was facing. I feel so lost sometimes, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt you or make you feel trapped in something you couldn't control." Miguel, with his heart racing, went to her and took her hands. He looked into her eyes and, with a tenderness he didn't know he had, said, "Amanda, I love you, not for what you do or don't do, but for who you are. And the illness, the struggle you're facing, that doesn't change anything. I want to be by your side, not just as a friend, but as someone who loves you in every possible way." Miguel's words deeply touched Amanda. It was as if an invisible barrier between them had been broken, and she felt lighter, more secure. She was no longer alone in this fight. He was there by her side, ready to face it with her, without fear, without hesitation. "I want this too, Miguel," she replied, her voice choked with emotion. "I was so afraid of losing you, but now I know we don't have to let anything tear us apart. Together, we can face anything." Miguel smiled and hugged her, and in that embrace, everything felt right. He didn't know what the future held for them, but one thing he knew for sure. Together, they could face any challenge life put in their way. Their love, now free of fear and uncertainty, would be the strength that kept them united. Over time, Miguel and Amanda continued their new journey together. Their love blossomed amid the hardships. However, with each step they took, the shadow of reality grew more present. Amanda was still facing the consequences of her illness, and the highs and lows were becoming more intense. Her battle was far from over, and every day the weight of her physical limitations became more evident. Amanda had already become accustomed to hiding her fears and worries. She made an effort to maintain a facade of normalcy for Miguel, fearing that he would distance himself if he saw how difficult things were becoming. But Miguel, with his attentive and sensitive gaze, knew she wasn't well. He noticed the small changes, the moments of weakness that she tried to disguise with a forced smile. He knew he was dealing with something much bigger than just an illness. He was witnessing Amanda's struggle to maintain her identity amidst the chaos the disease brought. One evening, after a long day where she could barely leave her bed, Miguel found her sitting by the apartment window, staring at the city outside with a distant look. The soft moonlight illuminated her tired face. He approached quietly, without words, just watching her for a few seconds. His heart tightened, seeing the silent pain she carried. Amanda, sensing his presence, slowly turned to look at him. Her eyes were tired, but they still held that spark of hope Miguel loved so much. However, there was something else there, something Miguel recognized as a clear sign. She was withdrawing, not physically, but emotionally. The illness and its limitations had begun to take control of her life in a way she no longer knew how to handle. "Miguel," she said, her voice low and hesitant, "I don't know if I can keep going like this. I feel like I'm burdening you. I'm so afraid that you'll see me as a broken person, someone who can't give you what you need, someone who's not the person you thought I was." Miguel moved closer, sitting next to her. He held her hands gently, looking into her eyes, not rushing to speak, just feeling her pain as if it were his own. He knew exactly what she was feeling. He knew that for Amanda, accepting vulnerability was one of the hardest things. She had always seen herself as strong, independent, capable of facing anything. And now, with the illness taking over her life, she felt like she was losing that strength, and with it, the image she had of herself. "You're not broken, Amanda," he replied softly, "and I'll never see you that way. You're an incredible woman with a strength I deeply admire. And I'm not here because you're perfect, or because you can give me something to compliment me. I'm here because I love you, the way you are. No matter what happens, no matter what you're going through, I'll be by your side." Miguel's words were like a balm to Amanda's emotional wounds. She breathed deeply, as if that simple act of tenderness was a reminder that she wasn't alone, that true love didn't require perfection. She had become so used to hiding her pain, pretending to be okay, that hearing Miguel's words made her feel something she had lost long ago. The feeling of being seen, of being loved, not for her accomplishments, but for who she truly was. "I just don't want to drag you down, Miguel," Amanda confessed, her voice now weaker. "I know you have your own dreams, your own life, and I don't want it to be the weight that keeps you from flying." Miguel smiled, but the smile wasn't pure joy. It was a deep understanding. He knew exactly what she was saying. He knew that deep down, Amanda feared that his love and dedication to her might become a burden. But he didn't see it that way. He didn't see Amanda as a responsibility, but as a partner. Someone with whom he shared genuine love and was willing to live through any challenge they would face. "I don't care about the weight of reality, Amanda," he said firmly. "I care about you, and together, we can carry anything. I'm not here because you're perfect, or because life with you is easy. I'm here because with you, I've found a love that's worth every struggle. No matter how much life tries to bring us down, we will always rise together." Miguel's words reached Amanda's heart in a way she hadn't expected. They were simple, but loaded with deep meaning. She wasn't alone. They weren't alone. They had each other, and that was more important than anything else. In that moment, something shifted. The tension Amanda had been feeling regarding her relationship with Miguel began to lessen. She realized he didn't see her as a burden, but as someone with whom he wanted to face life. And more importantly, she began to believe that maybe she could face the disease with his help. Perhaps the weakness she felt wasn't a curse, but an opportunity to grow closer to him, to be more honest and vulnerable than ever before. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but somehow she now felt she had the strength to follow it. Miguel looked at her, and his eyes were filled with love, with unwavering devotion. Together, he said again, "We can face anything." And with that simple gesture, the weight of reality, though still present, felt lighter. They knew the struggle was far from over, but they also knew that now they were ready to face it together. Time continued to pass, and Amanda's battle with her illness became more intense. She was literally facing the unimaginable, dealing with limitations she never thought she would have to accept. The back and forth of treatments was exhausting, and sleepless nights became more frequent. However, with each challenge, Miguel became more present, more attentive to her needs, and at the same time, more aware of his own limitations. The passion and love he felt for Amanda were undeniable, but he also knew they were being tested in ways he never imagined. Amanda, for her part, began to notice the emotional weight he was also carrying. The visible fatigue in his eyes, the way he worried too much about her, trying to make things return to normal. But the truth was, things were no longer the same. Nothing would ever be as it was before, and they both knew it. They had entered a new phase of life, where old certainties were replaced by constant uncertainty. Yet, together, they were finding a way to make sense of it all. One night, after another series of tests Amanda had gone through, Miguel found her in a state of deep reflection. Sitting on the couch, shoulders slumped, it seemed as though a part of Amanda was wondering if all that struggle was worth it. The fragility of her condition was taking over her mind, and for the first time, she questioned whether she was truly living or just existing. The physical pain wasn't the greatest enemy, but the mental pain of feeling powerless in the face of an uncertain future. "Miguel," she began, her voice choked, "I feel like I'm leaving you behind. I see you trying, but deep down you can't save me. And if I keep going like this, I'll lose you. I can't give you what you need." Miguel, standing beside her, listened with a heavy heart. He had always known that at some point, things would get complicated in ways he never expected. But he never imagined it would be to this point. The feeling of helplessness was something both of them were experiencing, and love, no matter how strong, couldn't change the reality of what they were living. But Miguel didn't hesitate. He knelt down in front of Amanda, took her hands firmly, and with an intense look full of sincerity, he responded, "I don't want to save you, Amanda. I just want to be with you. I just want you to know that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you need to give me. What I need most is already here. I just need you. No matter what happens, we're in this together, until the end." Miguel's words were like a balm that healed Amanda's invisible wounds. During that moment, she felt the truth of his words touch her heart in a way that made her feel less alone, less burdened by the pain of her illness, and more enveloped in the unconditional love Miguel offered. But even with the comfort his words brought her, Amanda couldn't help but feel guilty. She knew how much he was sacrificing, how much he was giving of himself to make her feel loved. And this love, as beautiful as it was, also brought with it the burden of constant worry. The fear of losing her, the fear of not being enough. Miguel was giving everything of himself, but what he truly needed was an Amanda who was with him, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually, facing every difficult moment together. It was a constant struggle between wanting to surrender to love and fearing that she wouldn't be able to be the person the other needed. Amanda knew this, but at the same time, she didn't want to continue feeling like a burden. She wanted to be the person Miguel could be proud to have by his side, the strong woman, full of life, full of hope. However, over time she realized that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't be all of that alone. "Miguel," she said in one of their late-night conversations, "I want to be strong. I want to be everything you deserve. But there are days when I don't know if I can keep going like this. I feel like I'm sinking. And I know you're trying to save me, but I don't want to be a burden." Miguel looked at her with an expression that reflected understanding and deep love. "You will never be a burden, Amanda," he said softly. "What we're going through now, this struggle, isn't something I see as a burden. I see it as part of our journey. Life has challenged us to live together in a way we never imagined. And I'm not here to save you. I'm here to walk by your side. Wherever you go, I'll be with you, in every step, in every smile, and also in every tear. These words stayed etched in Amanda's mind, like a silent but powerful promise. Even when the illness became unbearable and the days seemed endless, she knew she wasn't alone. She had Miguel by her side, someone who was willing to walk with her through all the difficulties, to see in her a strength she still couldn't find in herself. The weight of reality, although still present, was no longer as crushing. Each day, with every gesture of love, Amanda and Miguel drew closer to the understanding that true overcoming did not come from the fight against the illness, but from the ability to face life with love, compassion, and acceptance. They weren't winning the battle against the disease, but they were winning together. And in that, somehow, it was the greatest triumph of all. Miguel was sitting on the porch of the house he and Amanda had bought months earlier. The cool night breeze gently brushed his face as he looked out over the city below, its lights twinkling like distant stars. He thought about everything that had happened in his life and how he had come to this point. He remembered how, before meeting Amanda, he felt like his life was stagnant. He carried the weight of wrong decisions, missed opportunities, a past full of mistakes, and a sense that he would never be able to turn things around. Every step felt like a repetition of the last. The fear of failing again consumed him. But Amanda's gaze always calmed him. She had this ability to see the future with a clarity he had never had. Her smile, her confidence, the way she believed in his potential, even when he no longer believed in it himself. She had become the light he so desperately needed to keep moving forward. However, their relationship was about to face a much harder test than either of them had imagined. The impact of Miguel's past, something he had tried to bury for so long, was about to surface. And despite all the progress they had made, the weight of his history still loomed over him, like an invisible shadow, but one that could be felt with every step. Amanda, on the other hand, was inside the house, working on the plans for a new project she was planning. She had always been someone who liked to have control over situations, to have everything planned out, as if that was a way to protect herself from life's surprises. But there was something inside her telling her that, with Miguel, she was learning to let go of control. Maybe it was the way he made her see life differently, with more ease, more trust in the future. However, she also knew that their path wouldn't be easy. She knew that, for them to move forward, they would have to confront their pasts and the marks those pasts had left on their lives. Miguel's phone rang. It was a message from his brother, Marcos, who lived in another city. Miguel hesitated before opening the message. He knew this wasn't just a message with good news. As he read his brother's words, the weight of his past was present once more. Marcos was talking about a family gathering that would happen the following weekend. And with it, a question that Miguel knew he would have to face someday. Are you coming? Everyone misses you, and we know things aren't good between you and Dad. But maybe it's time to fix this. Miguel felt a wave of mixed emotions. On one hand, there was an immense desire to resolve things with his father, to heal old wounds. But on the other hand, there was the fear that confronting his past would bring up issues he wasn't ready to deal with. He had distanced himself from the family for years due to a tumultuous relationship with his father. The distance seemed to be the only way to protect his peace. But Marcos's message made him question if that distance was, in fact, the right way to move forward. Amanda noticed the expression on Miguel's face and moved closer, sitting by his side. She knew something was happening, something weighing on his mind, but she didn't know exactly what. Miguel looked at her, and without saying a word, handed her the phone. She read the message and without hesitation took his hand. I know the past can't be erased, she said softly, but maybe it's time for you to find a way to deal with it once and for all. Not to please anyone, but for yourself. You don't have to do this alone. Miguel looked at her, his eyes reflecting the internal struggle he was feeling. He knew she was right. The weight of the past had always been a stone in his path. Maybe now was the right moment to face what he had been avoiding for so long. Not because of his family or Marcos, but for himself. He needed to free himself. He needed peace. But the decision wouldn't be easy. Miguel knew that, by returning to that family environment, he would have to confront all the painful memories, the grudges he had carried for so long. He feared that this might put his relationship with Amanda at risk, as he felt that, by opening that door, he was putting his life and their relationship into unfamiliar and risky territory. Amanda, sensing Miguel's internal struggle, smiled at him and said, "I'll be with you, no matter what you decide. But I know you can't keep carrying this alone. What happened in the past doesn't have to define your future. What matters is what you do with it now." Miguel felt a wave of relief as he heard those words. She always knew exactly what to say to calm him, to make him feel capable. He knew that, with her by his side, he could face any challenge. At that moment, Miguel made a silent decision. He would choose to go to the family gathering, not to seek approval, not to resolve everything at once, but to take the first step. The step he knew he had to take. The step that might be the hardest of all. But he was ready. And so Miguel and Amanda's future began to unfold in a different way. Their journey wouldn't be easy, but they were both willing to face whatever came their way, together. The impact of Miguel's past was still present, but he had finally understood that it was no longer a shadow chasing him. He could take control of his own story. What came next was something he would build with his own hands. Miguel's decision was made. He knew that going to meet his family wouldn't be easy, but he also knew it was time to deal with what he had avoided for so long. The day of the reunion arrived, and Miguel found himself standing at the door of their house, his heart tight. He still didn't know what to expect, but one thing was clear: he wasn't going alone. Amanda was by his side, always supporting him, giving him strength to face what was coming. The drive to Miguel's hometown was silent. Both were deep in thought, absorbing everything behind that decision. Amanda knew how much that reunion meant to Miguel, and she was determined to help him face whatever was necessary. Miguel, on the other hand, was filled with uncertainties. It wasn't just about seeing his family again, it was about confronting his own internal wounds. Arriving at Miguel's parents' house, the scene seemed just as it always had. The house, with its simple and cozy facade, brought back many memories. It was the place where he spent his childhood, where he grew up, surrounded by his father's expectations and constant family arguments. The sight of the gate he had always seen from a distance now felt like an impossible obstacle to cross. But he took a deep breath, and with Amanda by his side, took the first step. Upon entering the house, Miguel was greeted by his brother Marcos, who embraced him with a warm but simultaneously tense smile. The two hadn't seen each other in months, and the emotions were mixed. The atmosphere was heavy with an energy that everyone knew meant the reunion wouldn't be easy. Miguel's father was in the living room, sitting in his usual armchair, eyes fixed on the TV. Upon hearing footsteps, he slowly turned around, and the look between father and son was a mix of discomfort and something Miguel couldn't quite identify. It was a look that said everything and nothing at the same time. "Miguel," his father said dryly, "it's been a long time. Are you okay?" The simple words carried a tension that could be cut with a knife. Miguel, not knowing what to say, looked at Amanda. She was by his side, her eyes full of understanding. Without words, she gave him a smile of encouragement, and Miguel felt the courage he had been searching for. He knew that, to move forward, he had to be honest with himself and everyone there. "I'm okay," Miguel said, his voice firmer than he had imagined. "I'm trying to find my way. And if I'm here today, it's because I'm ready to face the things I've left behind." Miguel's father remained silent, analyzing his son's words. For a moment, it seemed like the old wounds were about to resurface, as if time had stopped, and the mistakes of the past were about to be recreated. But contrary to what Miguel expected, his father stood up from the chair and walked toward him, looking at him with an intensity that unsettled him. I know I've done a lot of things wrong," his father said, his voice trembling, something Miguel had never heard before. "I always tried to do the best I could, but I know I wasn't the father you deserved. I was too rigid, too distant. But I always thought about you, Miguel. Maybe I just didn't know how to show it." His father's words were both a relief and a shock. Miguel hadn't expected to hear those words, so full of regret and vulnerability. He had always imagined that if his father ever came close, it would be to make accusations or demand something. But at that moment, it seemed like the masks were coming down. The harsh, relentless man Miguel had known was there, standing before him, in his most human form. Amanda, who had been silent up until then, felt the tension ease. She knew how much Miguel would need to process everything happening, and she was there to support him every step of the way. The conversation unfolding was Miguel's chance to begin healing his wounds, to rebuild a relationship that had seemed irreparably broken. "I know we can't erase the past," Miguel continued, feeling a wave of emotions overwhelm him. "But I think we can start trying to understand what went wrong. Maybe, just maybe, we can begin again. Not the way I imagined, but in a way that helps us move forward." Miguel's father looked at him with an expression that, for a brief moment, revealed the pain of years of distance. "I'd really like that, son, if you could give me a chance." And there, in that room, something began to change. It wasn't a magical solution or an instant forgiveness. However, it was the first step toward something new, something Miguel had never imagined possible. The reunion with his past didn't mean everything was resolved, but it was an opportunity to begin reconstructing the broken pieces of his story. Amanda watched with a subtle smile, knowing that while the process would be painful, it was exactly what Miguel needed. He didn't need immediate answers or instant reconciliation. What mattered was that he was willing to take the first step, and she would be by his side, helping him walk this journey. Over time, the conversation continued. Stories were shared, explanations were given, and what seemed like an impassable terrain began to soften. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Miguel finally understood that by confronting what had been buried deep in his soul, he wasn't only healing his wounds, but he was also offering himself the chance for a new beginning. After the emotional confrontation with his past, Miguel felt that something inside him had changed. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but that step, though small, was the beginning of something big. He looked at Amanda, who had been by his side the entire time, offering her unconditional support, and realized how crucial she had been in that moment. She wasn't just there as a spectator, but as part of his journey, helping him reconnect with the deepest parts of himself. During the trip back home, Miguel remained silent, reflecting on everything that had happened. The conversation with his father, the pain of the words that were said, the relief of realizing that he still had a chance to rebuild his relationship with his family. But at the same time, he knew that this wasn't the only part of his life that needed healing. The journey was just beginning. What Miguel had learned from the encounter with his family was that forgiveness and reconciliation weren't only about others, but about himself. He needed to forgive himself, understand his own limits, his flaws, and his wounds, in order to finally free himself from the weight he had carried for so long. Amanda noticed the subtle change in Miguel as they headed back to the city. He was more introspective, but also more at peace with himself. He knew the road ahead would be long, but he felt that now he was ready to walk it not alone, but with her by his side. She knew that as a couple, they had overcome many things. Miguel's pain was also hers. She too carried scars from the past, albeit in a different context, and knew that what they were experiencing together was the beginning of a new phase. As she looked at Miguel, Amanda understood that their relationship was more than just emotional support. They had become extensions of each other. Their hearts now beat as one, sharing hopes and fears. When they got home, Miguel sat down with Amanda, and for the first time in a long time, he felt comfortable enough to speak openly about his feelings. "You know, Amanda," he started in a soft voice, "I always thought I was lost, that there was no way out. But now I see that pain has a purpose. Everything I went through brought me to you, and somehow that made me stronger. I finally realized that true healing starts here." He pointed to his chest, where his heart beat strongly, with the will to accept myself, with the decision to be better. Amanda looked at him, gently touching his hand. "I've always believed that healing comes from within, Miguel, and you're doing just that. You're opening yourself to what's necessary to move forward. True change begins when we can face our own shadows and not run from them." He smiled, touched by Amanda's wisdom. He knew that together they could build a stronger life, a life where the past no longer controlled them, where wounds were healed with love and patience. The trip they had taken to meet his family wasn't just about reconnecting with relatives, but about a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. And now, Miguel felt ready to continue, to face his fears, his challenges, and even his expectations. But above all, he felt ready to be a new man, someone who was no longer limited by what he had been, but who now looked to the future with renewed hope. That moment of reflection was Miguel's turning point. He realized that change didn't happen overnight, but that every step, no matter how small, had a fundamental importance. He had spent years hiding his pain, his sadness, his frustrations, but now he understood that true strength wasn't in closing himself off from the world, but in allowing himself to feel, to err, to learn, and to grow. Pain had been his companion for so long, but now it no longer defined him. Miguel looked at Amanda, feeling immense gratitude for her. Her support had been the light he so desperately needed to emerge from the darkness he had been in. And as he looked at her, he knew he was not alone on this journey. They were building something together, something that wasn't just based on love, but also on trust, resilience, and mutual understanding. They had found strength in each other, and were ready for the next challenges life would bring. Amanda, for her part, also felt that something profound had changed. She knew that Miguel's journey wasn't over, but she was confident that with him by her side, they could face anything. Through him, she had learned that true love isn't just about being there in the good times, but also in the difficult ones, when everything seems lost and hopeless. True love is about supporting each other, understanding each other, and helping to heal the wounds we carry. Miguel looked to the future with new eyes. He knew the path ahead would still be challenging, but now he had the strength to keep moving forward. He knew he would no longer be the same man who had started that journey, but someone stronger, more self-aware, and more connected with himself. The future finally seemed full of possibilities. He had learned to view difficulties with a new perspective as opportunities for growth and overcoming. And so what had started as a trip to meet his family had transformed into something even deeper. A journey of self-discovery, forgiveness, and healing. A journey that Miguel knew was only just beginning, but one that he was ready to walk, with Amanda by his side forever. Hello, are you enjoying this beautiful story? Let's continue, but before that, I noticed that you haven't left your like on this video yet. It's really important for YouTube to keep promoting our content, and that way, we'll keep bringing you emotional stories. So go ahead and leave your like on this story, alright? Thank you. Time continued to pass, and although the days were still challenging, they began to feel different for Amanda and Miguel. The battle against the illness didn't ease, but the way they faced it changed with each passing day. What once seemed like an unbearable burden was now transforming into something deeper, more intimate. They were learning to love in a way they hadn't imagined before. A love without masks, without expectations, a love that didn't need to be perfect, but real. One morning, after a particularly exhausting treatment, Amanda woke up feeling physically drained, but with a mental clarity she hadn't experienced in months. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of Miguel's words, trying to understand what he had said about being in this together, without a predetermined end. The truth was that, in her weakest moments, she felt like she was dragging Miguel down with her. She wondered how he could still love her this way, even when she couldn't see the strong, vibrant woman he had once admired. Miguel entered the room, bringing a cup of hot tea as he did every morning. When he saw her sitting there, deep in thought, with slightly teary eyes, he sat down beside her and gently pulled her into his chest. "You're thinking too much, aren't you?" he asked softly, running his hand through her hair. Amanda couldn't hide the pain she still felt. "Miguel, I feel like I'm failing you. I'm not the woman you knew anymore. I'm not the strong woman you fell in love with. I'm letting the disease take over, and I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like you deserve more." Miguel stayed silent for a moment, as if absorbing every word she said. Then, with the calm he was known for, he spoke. "Amanda, you don't need to be anything other than who you are. What you're going through doesn't erase the love I feel for you. And the fact that you think you're failing actually shows how incredibly strong you are. I see you, Amanda. I see your courage. I see your fight. I see everything you do, even on the days when you can barely get out of bed. And that, to me, is true love. It's not about always being okay, Resthaner. It's not about always being strong. It's about being together, no matter what happens. Those words fell like balm on her heart. Amanda, who had felt like she was failing for so long, now realized that deep down that was exactly what Miguel admired in her, her ability to love, even in the toughest circumstances. He didn't want her to be strong all the time. He wanted her to be human, to feel, and most of all, not to go through it all alone. As time passed, things changed. They were no longer the couple who once had happy days ahead, making plans for the future and living without major worries. But now, they were living a kind of love that transcended the limitations of health, the physical, the pain. They were living a love that remained strong, not because of external circumstances, but because of the depth of the connection between them. And so Amanda began to understand something essential. Love was no longer about being the perfect woman for Miguel. She didn't need to hide behind expectations and perfection anymore. She could be vulnerable, she could show her weaknesses, express her insecurities, and still be loved. It was a love that would accept the highs and lows of life, not trying to change reality, but embracing it in all its complexity. In one of these moments, while Miguel helped her get out of bed after a difficult afternoon, she looked at him with a soft, thoughtful expression and said, "I don't know what the future holds for us, Miguel, but one thing is certain. With you, I have everything I need." Miguel smiled and pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling his heartbeat faster. He knew that, no matter what the future brought, they had found something much deeper than any expectation or superficial desire. They had found each other with their weaknesses, their fears, their limitations, and that was the true meaning of love. As they continued facing each day, they began to realize that overcoming wasn't necessarily about defeating the disease, but about learning to live with it together. Every smile, every gesture of affection, every word of support became a form of resistance. Not resistance against the disease, but against the idea that one can only be happy when they have everything they desire. They were discovering that happiness was in being together, sharing both the good and bad moments, and accepting that life didn't need to be perfect to be meaningful. And even when the days were heavy, when the pain became unbearable, when hope seemed to fade, Amanda and Miguel knew they were living something much bigger than any disease or adversity. They were living love in its purest form, a love that didn't require perfection, but only presence. A love that, even in the darkest moments, could shine, showing them both that, in the end, that was what made the journey worth it. The following days were challenging, but also filled with moments of unexpected light. Amanda and Miguel learned to adapt their routine to the new normal that the disease imposed, finding creative ways to celebrate the small daily triumphs. One of the greatest lessons they both learned was the power of being present in the moment, of finding beauty in simplicity, and of recognizing that healing came not only from medication or therapy, but from how they lived their lives together, with more empathy, understanding, and patience. Amanda still faced difficult days, with the side effects of treatment and the emotional ups and downs that came with the process. However, by Miguel's side, she began to discover something valuable. That healing was an ongoing process that went beyond physical recovery. She realized that despite the challenges, she was healing in ways she never imagined. Every deep conversation she had with Miguel, every shared laugh, every moment of vulnerability in which she allowed herself to be fragile, was a form of healing. It was love itself, in its purest and most unconditional form, that was restoring parts of herself she thought were lost. Miguel, in turn, was also undergoing a transformation. If before he saw himself as the hero of the story, now he began to understand that true strength didn't come from saving the other person, but from supporting, from walking side by side, from being a pillar of love and presence. He learned that it wasn't necessary to have all the answers or solutions for everything. Sometimes, the simple act of being there, of holding her hand when she felt fear or sadness, was more important than anything else. He also understood that Amanda's vulnerability, her tears, and her weaknesses didn't weaken him, but made their relationship stronger because he saw her courage to be who she truly was, without masks or defenses. This was something he deeply admired. But one of the most significant moments in this new phase of the couple's life happened when Amanda, during a quiet afternoon, looked at Miguel and said with a shy smile, "I know this might sound strange, but I think I'm starting to feel better, not just physically, but in a different way, as if I'm learning to be myself again." Miguel, surprised but moved by her words, hugged her tightly. He knew that this meant something very important. It wasn't just a healing of the body, but a healing of the soul, a recovery of her identity. The disease had been a brutal adversity, but it was also in some way revealing new strengths, new lessons, new beginnings. They were growing together more than ever, and this brought them closer in ways that were unimaginable before. Over time, hope began to grow in a palpable way. Amanda and Miguel started dreaming again, not with the same plans as before, not with the idea of a perfect life without challenges, but with the reality that they could build a future together, facing challenges with courage and love. They began to travel, always modestly, but cherishing every moment together, rediscovering the simple pleasures of life. A weekend trip to a peaceful countryside was one of those moments of renewal. They spent a day walking through nature, talking, reflecting on everything they had been through, and realizing that, despite the obstacles, what mattered was being there for each other. They understood that the beauty of life was in the small things, the conversations by moonlight, the laughter at the dinner table, holding hands while walking down the road. And so, the journey of healing continued, but now with a richer and deeper perspective. They were no longer trying to resist the disease. They were learning to live with it, and that made all the difference. Amanda and Miguel began to realize that they were not alone in this journey. They had each other, the support of one another, and a strength that they couldn't describe, but that they were now deeply aware they possessed. Time passed and the seasons changed. The fight against the disease was still present, but the way Amanda and Miguel saw and faced it transformed everything. They had learned to love without demands, without external pressures, without expectations of what it should be. They simply were in each moment, and this became a kind of silent magic between them. Amanda, with the tough days still ahead, allowed herself to accept Miguel's help more fully. She learned that asking for support didn't make her weak, but that this act of humility was a demonstration of courage. And more importantly, she understood that vulnerability didn't mean weakness. On the contrary, it was an expression of strength. She gave herself permission to feel, to cry, to be happy, and to rise again, knowing Miguel was by her side. Miguel, in turn, became even more attuned to her needs. He began to notice not just the words she said, but the small gestures she made, the details that often went unnoticed. He learned to listen with more than just his ears. He listened with his heart. Every smile from Amanda, no matter how timid, became a victory, a celebration of her silent strength. He understood that, even though she was going through one of the hardest moments of her life, her presence was, in many ways, what sustained him the most. He, who once felt lost in the face of the disease, now knew that his strength was in being her constant support. There were moments when Miguel would watch her as she went about small daily tasks, like tidying up the house or preparing dinner. Each of these moments became a reminder that life was going on, that they were still building something together despite the challenges. Sometimes, he would catch himself smiling alone, thinking about how their love had transformed. He realized that their bond had strengthened in ways he never imagined, especially when they faced fear, despair, and uncertainty. Yet there was something more at stake, a mutual acceptance, an understanding that true love was not based on perfection, but on the ability to overcome challenges together. One quiet night, when Amanda looked at Miguel and said, "I feel like our journey is making me a stronger and more complete person. And, I think the love we have is the greatest strength I could have." Those words, spoken in a calm and serene tone, touched Miguel deeply. He held her hand and said, without hesitation, "I feel the same way. Every day I spend with you, I feel more capable of facing anything. Our love isn't fragile, Amanda. It's our rock, our strength." Those words became a silent mantra for them, Their love was no longer seen as something merely romantic or fleeting, but as a vital force, an energy that sustained and propelled them. They learned to value the moments of simplicity, the magic of small daily gestures. The simple act of having coffee together in the morning, of hugging each other after a long day, or even sharing a comfortable silence became the foundation of their relationship. And so, the love between Amanda and Miguel solidified as something more than just a feeling. It became a tool of healing, a compass that guided them through uncertainties and challenges. They were no longer just two people who happened to be together. They had become one, an unbeatable couple whose connection was stronger than any disease or adversity. They knew that the true power of love lay in its ability to endure, to adapt, and to flourish, even in the most difficult situations. Each time Amanda looked at Miguel, she saw not just the man she loved, but the partner who helped her be who she was. Unafraid of her weaknesses and confident that the best was yet to come. She knew their love was constantly evolving, adapting, and growing stronger as they learned to be more than just survivors, but true partners in every moment of life. And Miguel, looking at Amanda, knew that their future, no matter how uncertain, was something he wanted with all his heart. He no longer feared uncertainties, because the love they shared was unbreakable. They had learned that true love isn't measured just in moments of joy and lightness, but especially in times of struggle and pain. And together, they were becoming stronger every day. Now, more than ever, Miguel knew that their love was the force that would guide them into the future. He felt that they were ready to face any challenge, as long as they were together, hand in hand. This love, this immortal bond, would be the strength that sustained them both as they continued their journey side by side. As Miguel and Amanda settled on the couch in the living room, a sense of tranquility enveloped them, but something bigger was about to happen. The weight of the past few months had lessened, but the depth of the transformation Miguel was experiencing was yet to be revealed. He knew that this moment with Amanda by his side was only the beginning of something even greater. "You never asked me to change, did you?" Miguel said, his voice cracking a little, as if the words were coming from a deep place he'd kept hidden for so long. "I disappointed you so many times. I made you doubt us, doubt what we had, but you stayed here." Amanda looked at him with eyes sparkling, and before she could respond, he continued, now speaking with more intensity, as if no longer afraid to expose himself. "I always felt incomplete, Amanda, like there was an emptiness I didn't know how to fill. And for so long, I searched outside of myself. I sought excuses, blame, even an easier way out. But now, after everything I've been through, I understand. What I needed was to face myself, accept who I am, what I've done, the mistakes, and especially the good things I can still offer. I was lost, but with you, I found my way." Amanda held his hand, her eyes misty, but with a smile that brought a deep calm. "Miguel, you were never lost to me. I always saw in you a man with the capacity to transform, to reinvent himself. I saw everything you could be, even when you couldn't see it. I loved you and I love you, not for what you did or didn't do, but for who you are, and especially for what you're still going to become." Those words from Amanda pierced Miguel's heart in a way he never imagined possible. The emptiness he'd carried for so long now seemed smaller. He finally understood that transformation didn't come from the outside, but from within. For the first time in his life, he felt that he was enough. Not because of his accomplishments or an endless search for approval, but because he was already on the right path. The path of self-understanding and self-discovery. Suddenly, Miguel stood up. He took Amanda's hand and gently pulled her, as if an invisible force was guiding them beyond themselves toward something greater. "Are you ready to take the next step with me?" he asked, his eyes fixed on hers, a glimmer of hope reflecting more than any words could. Amanda, sensing Miguel's energy, stood without hesitation. They were ready. They were ready for something beyond pain, beyond insecurities, for a new beginning. And in that moment, they both knew that the real journey was just beginning. Together, they had overcome a challenge that seemed insurmountable, and now they were ready to build a life based on what truly mattered: love, patience, trust, and the ability to grow together. As they walked to the window, looking out at the horizon, Miguel asked a simple question, but one full of meaning. "Do you believe we can change, Amanda?" Amanda looked at him and with a serene smile replied, "We change, Miguel. Every day, in some way. Because changing doesn't mean abandoning who we are, but understanding that the best of us is still yet to come." Those words hung in the air, like an unspoken promise, but deeply felt by both. They knew the challenges wouldn't disappear overnight, but they were finally ready to face them with courage, together. At that moment, Miguel felt lighter than he ever had, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from his shoulders. And as the sun began to set on the horizon, casting a golden light across the room, Miguel realized something fundamental. Change begins with a decision. A decision to believe, to fight, and to never give up on what truly matters. Life, with all its difficulties and uncertainties, was a gift, and he was ready to embrace it with open arms. What are our own challenges, our internal struggles? How many times do we feel lost and search for external solutions when true change happens within us? The story of Miguel and Amanda reminds us that the first step to transformation is the hardest. Facing our own wounds, recognizing our weaknesses, and accepting that forgiveness begins within ourselves. Life is made up of choices, and every choice we make shapes who we will be tomorrow. What they teach us is simple, yet powerful. No matter how heavy the past may have been, true strength lies in seeking inner peace and learning to grow from it. Change is not a one-time event, but a continuous process, where each small step toward truth and self-awareness brings us closer to the person we are meant to be. If Miguel can, you can too. If he can forgive himself, learn from his mistakes, and open his heart to a better future, you can too. The power to change is in your hands, and the path to that begins now, with a simple decision to believe in yourself. Are you ready for your transformation? What did you think of this story? Leave a comment and mention the part you liked the most. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exciting videos. See you in the next story.